All right. Call to order the January 26th meeting of the Public Works Committee. Thank you all for braving the snow and coming on out. For those of you who are joining live on YouTube, thank you for gracing us with your presence. Would the Deputy Counsel please call the roll?
Reinhardt.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. Cleary.
Here.
Mr. Peter.
Here.
Mr. Fine.
Here.
Mr. Bergdorf.
Here.
Mr. Purley.
Here.
And Mr. Smith. All right, 8 present.
Great. Well, Mr. Smith be excused. All right. Our first item on previous business is approving the previous meeting's minutes. Do I have
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Peter, second by Mr. Fine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, that carries. Moving on to current business. Item number 2 is authorizing an agreement with the New York State Unified Court System regarding custodial and building maintenance services for the Albany County Courthouse, Judicial Center, and Family Court for this. And we have Commissioner Latina for this one.
Good evening, Chairman. Yes, this is the third year of the 5-year contract with the Unified Court System for 686 program for reimbursement for maintenance, custodial, and any tenant work that's been going on through the year of April 1st, 2020 through March 31st of 2021.
Great. I just had a very dumb question on this one, Commissioner. So I see the amount is $709,000. Where's that going to and from?
This actually, what we do is this, what you see on the sheet here is considered a recap sheet. What they do is they set the limit of the contract in the previous, in the 5-year contract. So there's a base amount in there. So this is the base amount of $709,000. Depending on what we do as far as tenant work and or any request by OCA in that limit contract, it brings it up to that contract amount of $709,000. Or next year will be higher than that, but we can't go over that $709,061 for that current year. So all requests have to meet in that contract amount.
Okay. So is this money that the U.S. court system is giving to us, the county?
Yes, this is what we're reimbursed for our costs in the court systems.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for that. Any questions from the members?
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm going to probably be asking this a lot through the committee meetings. The governor has suggested that there may be 2 budgets, one based on a certain amount of reimbursement from the federal government and another based on another amount from the federal government. And that in my years beforehand, I never, when I saw 100% state reimbursement, I never worried too much. But since the county has to lay this out first, what assurances do we have that there may not be money withheld if it doesn't work out to the governor's financial satisfaction?
Well, this is a 5-year contract that we've already signed with New York State. Like I said, this is the 3rd year of that contract. I don't believe that this is a little bit different more than a grant type of system. This is reimbursement to run the court system. What they might do is just possibly cut back on their tenant work. This is really almost like a lease to them, which they would have to pay the lease under the agreement.
Okay, so you're relatively confident that even if the state were to get the minimal amount of aid, that it is considering that the county would not be potentially out a portion of the 100% state reimbursement?
I don't believe so under the Unified Court System. I don't believe so.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Cleary.
I'm going to abstain on this, but I can explain it. Basically, as David said, this went from April 1 to March 31st. And by law, we, United a Unified Court System, who I work for, we are committed to 100% cleaning, 25% maintenance, and 100% tenant work. That's by law, and we collect fees from the courts for that. So this contract already is 10 months in for the year, which is typical how it goes, and it's not the county, it's more how we get them out. We have cut back on tenant work this year because of the money, but there's going to be extra stuff that we're going to have to pay the county because they've done cleanings for us, which are 100% reimbursable. So as far as this goes, the contract is already 10 months in. Everything is with the state. And as David said, it's not a grant. It's something that you guys are required, the county is required to provide the buildings, and then we reimburse for cleaning, maintenance, and tenant work.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter,
if there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to make a motion to move this.
a motion by Mr. Peter, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. No, Mr. Cleary's abstention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that carries. Move on to item number 3, which is amending Resolution 58 for 2016 regarding the renovation and rehabilitation of the Shaker site buildings. And I believe this is another case where there's money coming in, and then we're using this to rehabilitate the Anley Shaker site area. This expired back in December.
That's correct. We received the grant back in December 10th of 2015, which was a 5-year grant for this work. We've been working diligently for the last, let's say, five years on this. Everything that we have to do has to be approved by the Parks and Recreation Historical Preservation. As far as who we're going to use, we had to use a historical architect. But right now we're at the point where we have 100% construction documents that were submitted to the state, along with we're looking for the abatement of any abatement work we have to do there. As of January 12th, 2021, we requested that we extend this through the Parks and Recreation. We received a authorization from the Parks and Recreation that we could extend this through 2021. And we hopefully should have this project completed by December of 2021.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart for sure. So thank you for this. Any other questions or comments from the membership?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bergdorf.
I've got the same sort of question here. This is a 50-50 state-county match. Now, this is a grant. Is this subject to any other constraints? I mean, we have to lay out the money first and hope we get half of $500,000 back.
Well, this is a matching grant. If we only spend $200,000, they would give us $200,000 back. So it would be a match up to $500,000. I think with the authorization we have for extending the contract, I would say that probably the state and the historic preservation are not going to come back on this grant.
I would hope so, because it's something that I support as well. Thank you.
See a motion by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Peter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4 is authorizing an agreement with International Dioxide regarding the odor control of the water purification district. Thank you, Commissioner Latina. I guess we're now turning to Mr. Gaudio. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is a request for a contract authorization with International Dioxide for the supply of odor control oxidants. This is basically a conditioning agent that we use with our sludge to mitigate hydrogen sulfide. It's for a 2-year term. $175,000 per year for a total contract value of $350,000. And then there's an option for a 1-year renewal at the back end.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gaudio. So I see that this is a single source contract, or is this the only bidder?
This actually was the only bidder. We had an interest in another bidder. We were actually looking at possibly using a different chemical, hydrogen peroxide. We had a company come in June of last year to do a pilot. We thought they were going to provide an alternate, and then when we were actually out to bid, they actually wanted to extend the bid term by another, I believe, 4 weeks, which we weren't comfortable with. So we declined that offer. So this was the only bidder from that perspective.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sure that those that are downwind will find this money well spent. Mr.
Chairman.
Bergdorf.
Just out of curiosity, Angela, how does the price compare for this 2-year agreement to the price, the unit price of the last contract?
It actually went down. So we were 95 cents for the prior, and then it's 0.798, which I think equates to about a 16% reduction.
So you're going to have a substantial savings over what you budgeted?
We hope so. We kept the value basically at the prior, just actually a little bit higher, because we were also considering taking in additional sludge possibly from Saratoga prior to the digester project. So that's why the cost hasn't really been reduced from the previous contract value. But if that doesn't really go forward, there will be an inherent savings back to us.
Thank you very much.
See a motion, a hand from Mr. Reinhardt. Is that a motion or is that a
No, I question.
question from Mr. Reinhardt?
My question is, if after the 2 years, I hope we are going to be looking at the hydrogen peroxide option, especially, do you know whether that would likely save money, or would it be more expensive? You know, what are the trade-offs with that other option?
Yeah, there are some benefits in terms of the chemical compatibility, especially when we get into kind of the digesters. So I think that was why we were looking at it. It's a little less harsh, I think, than the endemol product that we were looking at. Again, the pilot that we did over the summer went really well. We were a little surprised that they, at the time of bidding, after they had already piloted it for a number of weeks, they came back and asked for an additional 4-week window. So again, we were kind of shocked, quite honestly, that they kind of went down that road, because it seemed like they would have had enough information. But I think that's something that we're optimistic will be the case, that we will be looking at additional cost savings. And I think there are some inherent benefits of just using that product over the current product.
Yeah, I would hope that we don't just automatically take that final year extension that you alluded to earlier, if this other option is available.
Yeah. Yeah, and we are going to be doing some additional monitoring. We have some odor control loggers that we just received those today, so we are going to be installing those. And I think from our perspective, we would like to have them come back in and do additional pilot testing. I think the one thing they wanted to do was look at concentrations, and they wanted to kind of look at using a lower concentration product. Again, I was just kind of late in the game in terms of us giving them the extension, because we're up against the contract expiration for the current supply. So we just weren't comfortable doing that at this time.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bergdorf, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That carries unanimously. All right. This is Mr. Rogers' piece. Number 5. Authorizing agreements with National Grid regarding the purchase of county-owned streetlights.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Returning to you on our streetlight project. As you may recall, we brought the previous step was entering into a contract agreement with the Power Authority, which went in December. The next step following that agreement is to actually pursue a direct agreement with National Grid to purchase the streetlights. The request is for not to exceed $150,000. We were quoted for the streetlight cost at 142. I am asking for a little bit of wiggle room in case there are slight adjustments prior to closing. Hence the not to exceed 150,000. The cost will be outlaid by the county and then reimbursed by NYPA because NYPA is financing the overall project. So that is inclusive of the streetlight purchase and the conversion to LEDs, which is part of the county's effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But because it's a purchase, the county does have to contract directly with National Grid for the purchase. It then goes to the PSC for approval. But we will be reimbursed by NYPA for that outlay. So it is a little confusing. Happy to answer any questions you may have from the committee.
Outstanding. Two that I have. So this is for a 105 streetlights. Will the streetlights, is it like a total takedown, put a new one up, or is it more of a minor thing where they're staying in place and there'll be kind of minimum
Sure.
road disruptors? And then two, where are these lights going? Is mostly in the county roads in the towns closest to the city, or are we covering hill towns too?
Sure. So to take your questions in order, there shouldn't be much road disruption because in most cases, the utility retains the pole. So what we're purchasing and changing is from the top of the pole, the arm out to the light. That's just the way it's done. That's the way it's done under PSC. So, somewhat minimal in that regard. As far as location, it is a bit of a spread. So along county roads, certainly, there is a chart. I don't know if it's attached to this RLA. I know it was attached to the December one that has a summary, but, for example, along Fuller Road, there are some out by the sort of the Cross Gates area, county roads out there, some by the nursing home, some by county parks, Lawson Lake, for example. And we obviously have a good understanding of where our lights are now. But one nice thing about this is, it'll be even better after this with the smart technology. It'll all be mapped in an online system. We'll get notifications if there's any sort of disruptions that will allow us to better monitor the county's portfolio.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions from the members? Mr. Peter and then Mr. Bergdorf.
Yeah, no, I would like I think this is a great program. The city of Albany is doing that. It makes both sense environmentally and fiscally in the long term. It's the amortization. Just the savings on the amortization of what National Grid charges on repairs and things of that nature, plus the ability for us to put in LEDs. So, I would like to be, obviously Mr. Bergdorf has a question, so I didn't mean to interrupt that, but I do want to be added as a sponsor to this. And I'm obviously, after Mr. Bergdorf speaks, I'd like to move it.
Same, Mr. Bergdorf.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this as well. I just have a question on the choreography of the contracts. Where are we with the agreement that we authorized with the Power Authority? Has that been executed yet?
Yes, and I'll note when we executed that, they set aside the funding for the project. That was my only concern. Yep. Was that we enter into an agreement with Niagara Mohawk prior to having an agreement with the Power Authority, which I feel very confident would make good on their commitment. And I would like to be added as a co-sponsor as well.
I think I would like to as well. Mr. O'Brien and Mr. Clary. I think Mr. Clary wants to be added as well.
Just added, and then I second Mr. Peters' motion to move it.
All right, we have a seconded motion. Mr. Fine?
I'd like to be added as well.
All right, how about we'll add the full committee to the bill. Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. O'Brien. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That's unanimous there. All right, and bringing us to our last item, number 6, which is authorizing a submission of a grant application to the New York State Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for fencing and gates at the Times Union Center.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee members. So we're just requesting permission on behalf of the Department of Public Works and the management of the Times Union Center to apply to the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services fiscal year 2019 critical infrastructure grant. If awarded, the application was for $33,000, and the grant would provide funding to increase the physical security at the rear of the Times Union Center. Money would be used for purchasing and installing fences and gates around the rear of the Times Union Center, the loading dock area between Beaver Streets and Market Streets.
Thank you, Mr. Alderson. Any questions from the members?
Quick question.
Mr. Bergdorf.
Yes, Mr. Alderson, you said this was from a 2019 grant?
Yeah, so that's when Homeland Security must have been appropriated the money by the state. So they're always behind schedule with these. Unfortunately, last year we had applied and received a grant for fiscal year 2019, or 2018, excuse me.
So do we have a great deal of confidence? I see this is another one that's supposed to be 100% state, that we will get 100% reimbursement upon laying out the money?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Peter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. That carries unanimously. That concludes our agenda for today. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Cleary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you all for coming out. Stay safe and